to become aware of the influence of our culture on us, I propose you an exercise. In a minute, I'm showing you a picture. And what I'm asking you is to describe what you see in these pictures. And be careful, stick to the instructions, describe what you see. Have you described what you have just seen? How did you describe it? When I propose this exercise in my training courses, most of the time participants say things like people that they're praying, or a mass of black people waiting for someone to talk, African people praying near an oil station. If you have described the pictures I share with you in a similar way, I ask you, is what you have just said an interpretation, or is it an objective description of what you saw? Are you really sure you are describing? In other cases, trainees say, such a beautiful colored dresses, people praying where they are not supposed to, nearby an oil station. If you describe the pictures in this similar way, I'm asking you, aren't you interpreting or judging what you see instead of just describing it? Indeed, if you describe the picture in a similar way, you expressed a disappointing or negative judgment about the photo subject, together with your interpretation. For most people, it is challenging to stick only to the description of what can be considered objective, which is limited to the visual information presented. Generally, people tend to share their first comments, often expressing interpretations or judgments regarding the photo's subjects. It is hard to distinguish what the pictures represents from the meaning that those viewing the photo infer. An objective description of the pictures I showed you could be: on the right side there is an oil station. Nearby, some people are sitting in line on their knees above a small carpet. On the backs, a second line of people is sitting on their knees and with their bodies bent forward are curved in front. Behind them, there are a few other people on their knees on a small carpet, and a woman is standing upon the left side, and so on. The picture I show with you is included in the Feeling Italian book. It is titled Afro-Italians, Stories of New Identities, and the author is Simone Sapia, an Italian photographer. He shot a series of pictures in Conegliano Veneto, a small town in the northeast Italy, during the Gamou Senegalese ceremony that every year takes place there during the Easter. Thousands and thousands of Senegalese people living in Italy and in Europe gather in pilgrimage in this town, and they pray in the local arena for the entire weekend. Some people stop in the street to pray near the oil distributor before they are able to join the rest of the community into the arena. What can we learn from this exercise? We often respond to unfamiliar people or situations with subjective evaluations, projecting our judgments into what we think we are witnessing. These projections are even more risky when people from a similar background, regional, national, ethnic, generational, etc., share their reactions and find confirmation in their agreements. Consensus is taken as validation, and there is no room for diversity. Different opinions, ideas, or beliefs don't find possibility to be considered or expressed. That's why it is important to take care when not to confuse the observed with assumptions or guesses about the observed, and not to confuse either of those with how we feel about what we encounter. The exercise I propose you is called DIE exercise. DIE is the acronym of describe, interpret, evaluate. Through this exercise, it is possible you come to the insight that these three steps are often not being distinguished. We often tend to react and speak from personal and cultural perspectives, like we are describing some objective truth. On the contrary, these three steps are required to be taken in order to observe and try to understand new and unfamiliar situations, particularly if we don't know the cultural context. Try to separate objective description from what is subjective. Recognize your cultural-based subjectivity, including emotionally laden reactions. The IE model encourages you to reverse the usual order of response, withholding one's first reactions and becoming more aware of how easily and unconsciously one may trespass into the realm of judgment, and how difficult it can be to limit one's comments to what can be described directly. DIE exercise invites greater attentiveness to what is represented and thus to encourages people to observe things that they had not immediately noticed, and to be more aware of factors that may unconsciously affect their judgments. Judgments often reveal more about the person making the judgment and the cultural meanings that the person has internalized than about the image or other physical stimulus that evoked the judgment. This includes stereotypes that exist only in the mind of the observer and not in what is objectively presented. In the same situation, we don't all see or hear the same things. Some pay attention to some information, visual, auditory, others to others. Different people, especially with different cultural backgrounds, can interpret differently or associate different meanings to the same behavior, to the same words, or to the non-verbal elements of communications. The same situations can be evaluated differently by people with different cultural backgrounds, as people can have different values and therefore different evaluation criteria. To take into consideration the perspective of the other, it may be useful to apply the DIE model. Do you recognize in your daily life events or situation where you tend to mix up these processes? Try to apply the DIE model and look at the situation from your own cultural perspective and from other people involved cultural perspective. By applying the DIE model, you can get an insight about your misunderstanding, your misinterpretation, or your misjudgment.